The risk of recession could be as much as 35% within the next 2 years. Joining me now, American Action Forum President Douglas Holtz-Eakin, former CBO director. Douglas, always great to see you. That chart was pretty impressive,
Thanks,
right? You see the inflation go up and the approval rating goes down. Wow.
Yeah, that's not a big surprise. We've seen inflation hit 8.5% most recently, but inside those numbers are even some worse numbers, and that is food, energy, and shelter. That's 50% of the typical family's budget, up 9.4% in the past year. So that's the real economic pain that people are feeling, and that's the political headwinds that the president's seeing in his polling.
Yeah, and when you look at the problem that we have, it's one of spending. We spent a lot in 2021 when President Biden came into office. He wants to continue to spend. He wants to try to spend as much as he can before maybe he gets stopped in the midterms. But many people say, the administration will say, that spending more will actually help get us out of it. And many reasonable people say spending more is not the solution here.
The spending more is not the solution here. It's very clear that the $2 trillion stimulus last March is really at the root of the real jump in inflation that we saw immediately thereafter in the second quarter of 2021. And, other countries have inflation. You hear that all the time. They don't have inflation like the United States, and they didn't get the jump early like we did. It traces directly to that spending, and repeating that mistake would just be a horrific error.
Yeah, and as you watch the CPI numbers continue to move higher, the White House continues to insist that we should strip out food and we should strip out energy because those are the most volatile. But this has gone on long enough that I say you can't look at inflation without including those two things because they are the most important, most impactful when it comes to the American family's budget.
Well, as I said, people live with food, energy, and shelter. That's half their budget, and those numbers matter to them. You can't strip them out and somehow pretend that they're not paying higher prices. Economists like to strip them out to see if you've got a durable inflation problem. Either way you look at it now, you have a durable inflation problem. Right now, the gap between the durable inflation and the Fed policy rate is as large as it's been since the 1970s. So the Fed, which is going to have to do the bulk of the work to get this inflation under control, is way behind the curve. It's behind the curve in a way it hasn't been for 5 decades, and it is going to have to move this year, and that's why you see this concern about recession. The fear, and all eyes are on the Fed, is that in the process of addressing inflation, they will move too quickly, too harshly, and drive the economy down. And if they don't, then we live with inflation. So they're in a no-win situation.
And Jerome Powell would say, I didn't create this problem per se. Inflation was within the proper parameters before President Biden came in and started writing checks to everybody. And so I can't really see him moving so fast that he's going to send the economy into recession and essentially bearing the blame for it. But having said that, then consumers are going to experience this for a lot longer. Jen Psaki says, oh, it'll be gone by the end of the year. I have never seen a price go up on something only to come down, 6 months later. It doesn't work like that.
No, it doesn't work like that. And I think that Chairman Powell is a very cautious man. This Fed is cautious. They're more likely to move too slow than too fast, but that leaves inflation entrenched. And this is why central bankers don't like inflation. It gives them nothing but bad choices. They have no good choices here. Now, Chairman Powell himself has said they will get inflation back to the 2% mark, but it will take 3 years. So nobody at the Fed is pretending that somehow this is going to be gone at the end of the year. Yeah. This is with us for a while, and they will do their very best.
And one of the bright spots of the economy was the housing market. And as we've seen interest rates rise in anticipation of how the Fed will act, I think the 30-year mortgage is now close to 5% at this point. The housing market's going to cool, and, you'll see a trickle-down effect as well with rising rates with respect to corporations paying more to borrow and finance activity, also paying more for wages and all these other problems that we have. This might even be out of the Fed's hands at this point.
Well, the only way for the Fed to get inflation under control is to cool the economy and ultimately cool the labor market. Working through the housing market is a traditional mechanism for them to do that. Mortgage rates go higher, fewer homes are built, fewer water heaters are installed, fewer stoves are installed, fewer refrigerators are bought. All of that stuff bleeds into the rest of the economy. That's part of the slowing process. But if you're a homeowner who's been enjoying the rise in prices, that's not a good news story.
Right.
And if you're someone trying to borrow to run a business, that's not a good news story.
That's not a good story either.
So as I said, there's not a lot of good news here once you make a big mistake and allow inflation to get to 8.5%.
Douglas, great to see you, even though the news is not the best news that we could be talking about. Thank you so much.